Welcome to Chapter 5 of the Washington State Bee Association Beginning Beekeeper Certification Training. There are 4 sections in this chapter: observing the outside first, looking inside the hive, the brood pattern, and when to add more space. After you install your bees, or it's warm enough to inspect an overwintered hive, you are going to want to constantly get into your hive to check on your bees. But don't, because every time you get into your hive, you set the bees back about 2 to 3 days. You can actually learn a lot by observing the hive on the outside. In fact, when you see bees outside of the hive bringing in pollen, this is a sign of a healthy hive because bees feed the pollen to the larvae in brood rearing. On a normal day, you should see the bees actively coming and going. You might even see some bees flying around the entrance of a hive. This is normally the young bees taking their orientation flight. However, just as there is good signs, there are also bad ones. If you see a pile of dead bees in front of your hives, bees stumbling around on the ground, or bees with deformed wing, you should be concerned and look inside of your hive. When the daytime temperature reaches 60 degrees, it's dry and the wind is not blowing, you can conduct your first inspection. If you are inspecting an overwintered colony, the bees will be clustered in the top hive body. During this inspection, you want to rotate the boxes as well as clean the bottom board. While it is not necessary to see the queen during this inspection, it is very important that you see signs of her. The presence of eggs indicate that the queen was there at least 3 days ago. While the eggs may be hard to see, the larva and the capped brood will be easier to observe. Remember, there are 3 stages. There is the egg, up to 3 days, at which time it turns into a larva. Once the cell is capped and the brood is covered, it is then a pupa. When inspecting the frame, it is normal to see the brood pattern in the center bottom, cells of pollen below the nectar cells in the upper corners. It is also normal to see scattered empty cells throughout the brood pattern, as well as a large patch of empty cells, indicating that the queen laid in this section first and the bees hatch. However, if you see 3 to 4 times as many scattered empty cells as you see brood, you have a problem with pest, disease, or the queen. Next, we'll take a look at the queen cells. There are 2 types of queen cells that you'll normally find in the hive: swarm cells and supersedure cells. Let's take a look at the swarm cells. Swarm cells are normal indications of a strong hive that is naturally getting ready to reproduce. However, it may also be an indication of an overcrowded hive. Swarm cells are typically seen on the bottom of the frame. When there is food in the bottom of the cell, it will be used. If the cell has been capped, the colony is either ready to swarm or has already swarmed. A queen cell that has hatched will be ragged around the edge of the opening, indicating that the queen has chewed her way out. A colony will frequently create just-in-case swarm cells that queens do not lay in unless the decision to swarm is made. If the cell opening is smooth with no food in the bottom or eggs or larvae inside, it is a just-in-case cell. In this photo, there are 3 swarm cells, 2 of which have hatched and 1 that is still sealed. On the left side of the photo, there is a just-in-case cell with the smooth opening. Supersedure cells are normally found in the center of the frame and an indication that the colony needs to replace their queen because she is weak, damaged, or has died. In this photo, there are many cells found in the middle of this frame. These are supersedure cells. The rule of thumb is when a hive body is 3/4 full, add more space. This is an easy to remember formula that applies to all hives, the Langstroth, the long Langstroth, the Warray, as well as the top bar hive. Add more space will help the hive grow